I was playtesting different decks against my good friend the other day, and he told me that people don't understand just how powerful Lightning has become with the latest Torrential Tide set. Of course, I've been playtesting all sorts of decks, and honestly wrote off Lightning a bit until he showed me just how wrong I've been, all thanks to combining one under-the-radar card with another under-the-radar caster.
Listen, tinted windows like I'm ghosting in a phantom frame. Engine ground like it's hungry, I don't fan the flame.
On one of the most popular deck building sites, MetaZoo.tcgdeckforge.com, a site where you can upload decks to share with the public, there are currently 118 decks people have shared. Of those 118 decks, only 3 of them are using this caster. And of those 3 decks, 2 of them belong to myself and my buddy Wood Devil. That under-the-radar caster is none other than Isabella. Isabella's caster effect reads that each friendly lane has size limit +3, which means that instead of the usual 5 units you can put into a lane, each of your lanes are able to have 8 units in the lane, while your opponent is only able to put 5 units in the lane. Now, when you take that at face value, it doesn't mean much. However, thanks to another underrated card, Times Square, this effect becomes super powerful. Times Square reads, when this lane is resolved, each creature and equipment can contribute no more than 1 influence. Again, it doesn't really seem super powerful at face value, but when combined with Isabella, all of a sudden you create an extremely powerful advantage against your opponent, where in each lane, you can place Times Square, and you are able to contribute a maximum of 8 influence in a lane, while your opponent is only able to contribute a maximum of 5 influence to a lane. This card combination allows you to easily lock down lanes against your opponent. This all of a sudden becomes quite a problem for your opponent, as there is no way of dealing with the lane outside of replacing the Terra or finding a way to start rapidly wiping tokens against an opponent whose greatest strength as an aura type is generating more tokens. Thanks to cards like Raijin and Monkey Mirage, it also becomes fairly easy for a Lightning player to fill up their board with tokens. On top of this, the Terra card, Magnetic Field, also presents quite a challenge for your opponent. Magnetic Field reads that each creature with no abilities in this lane has +2 influence, which means if you fill a Magnetic Field Terra lane with tokens using Isabella, all of a sudden your opponent is staring down 24 influence in the lane if you fill it with tokens. Since you can play 3 Magnetic Field and 3 Times Square in your deck, you now have 6 Terra cards in your deck as an Isabella player that allow you to essentially lock down one of your 4 lanes. Now at this point, I am sure everyone is wondering, okay, but what if you don't draw any of those 6 Terras? Well, this is where the rest of your deck comes into play. Lightning also has a lot of super powerful draw cards that further your chances of pulling one of your 6 winning Terras. Cards like Lightning in a Bottle, Lightning Elusive, Concentrated Resources, and Summoning Circle all give you draw power, which make finding those 6 winning Terras quite easy, because once you start locking down lanes with your Terras, it becomes extremely difficult for your opponent to start getting points on the board. Now let's go ahead and run through the current version of my Isabella deck to see what other cards I am playing to help boost this strategy even further. As with all the decks I build, I keep this one public on the MetaZoo.tcgdeckforge.com website to hopefully help players build decks of their own. This specific deck I'm calling Isabella Control. I'm going to go ahead and go through each card in this deck and explain why it helps within the context of my previously explained Isabella strategy. Here you can see my Isabella Control deck. I'm using Isabella Torres as my caster. Each friendly lane has size limit +3. The 2 auras you can choose from as your secondary aura type are Fire and Water. I'm using Water for this build. My 2 starting Terras are going to be Rolling Thunder, which reads, when a non-token creature or equipment is played into this lane, its player may create a spark token in this lane. That's going to allow me to generate spark tokens from the very beginning of the game. Next, I'm playing Monogala River. Monogala River, on mission declaration, each player taps one of their untapped units in this lane. So while I'm generating spark tokens in this river lane, my opponent is going to have to tap their creatures while I'm tapping my spark tokens. Next, we have Casey Jones. Casey Jones is a very strong card that allows me to, on play, create a spark token in this lane. And then also, if it's ever dispelled or goes to the discard pile, I can create another spark token. Next, Baku. Baku makes it so that the rival lane has size limit -2. This is going to contribute to decreasing my opponent's lane size, which is going to come in handy with cards like Times Square and Magnetic Field. Next, I have Raijin. Raijin is very strong for generating tokens. This friendly lane has size limit +1, so it's going to give me an additional lane size limit. And then on play, I can create friendly spark tokens in this lane until this lane is at its size limit. So you're going to see a theme of this deck wanting to create as many tokens as possible. Next I have Dingbell, which is a 1 cost, 1 influence creature. On play, I can create a spark token in the lane. It's good for early game. Next, this is one of the win conditions of this deck, Sun Wukong. On successful mission, if the number of friendly creatures in this lane is greater than the number of rival creatures in this lane, gain MP equal to the difference. So you can already kind of see if I play this card into a Times Square lane, I'm not only going to win that lane with a maximum of 8 units to my opponent's 5, but I will also gain that difference in MP or mission points every round by having Sun Wukong in that lane. I also have Dingbell, Expert Repairer. This is going to grant each friendly spark token in the lane +1 influence, so just stacking up the influence on the board. I'm also playing Loch Ness Monster as part of my small water engine. Loch Ness Monster, it's just a very strong influence card for 2 cost. Another thing you can do with Loch Ness Monster that people don't realize is that there's a card that I'm going to show later called Monkey Mirage that completely fills all my lanes with tokens. If I already have Loch Ness Monster down, I can discard a card and bounce Loch Ness Monster back to my hand, which opens up a slot for me to play additional creatures or equipment into. Next I have Oni. This is another win condition card. I'm playing 1 Oni. Each friendly spark token has Overwhelm 4, gain 2 MP. So that means if I'm winning any lane by 4 or more influence, each spark token is going to gain 2 MP. This is a game ender card, which is why it's cost 9. So if I get this card late game, it's almost a guaranteed win. Next I have Tripwire. This is another card that reduces my opponent's size limits. Static Field Generator. This reduces both my and my opponent's size limits, but I don't really care too much about reducing my own size limits, as I have a lot of cards that are increasing my size limits when my opponent probably shouldn't have any. Lighting in the Bottle is a draw card, and you can also have the choice of creating a spark token. Summoning Circle is also a draw card. Monkey Mirage is very powerful, and I explained it previously. It generates tokens across all my lanes. Electrify creates tokens. Concentrated Resources is another draw card. Water in the Bottle is another draw card. And then I have my 2 Terras that I'm playing on top of my starter Terras, Magnetic Field and Times Square, both at 3. So it's a fairly simple deck that requires a lot of draw power because I'm trying to draw into my Magnetic Fields and Times Square and sort of lock down those lanes. And once those lanes are locked down, the game should be pretty easy. But
anyways, let me know what you think. Is this deck broken, or are there other decks like Riptide, Bridget, and Archive that can compete with Isabella?